Paranormal influencer Gabe Mathews here with a review of the new Ghostbusters movie, Frozen Empire. I'm going to start off with a spoiler-free review, so if you're not into spoilers, you can stick around for a short, brief period. Here is my spoiler-free review. It was fun. Alright, that concludes the spoiler-free section. Now we're going to get hot and heavy into spoiler territory. The movie starts out with a poem from Robert Frost. Very interesting way to start a Ghostbusters movie. I've never seen any of the other Ghostbusters films start with a poem, so I thought that was rather strange, and it never really came back into play, but I guess it set the theme and the mood. And the opening of the movie has like a bunch of old people that freeze. This is the first time we have this way back flashback in a Ghostbusters film, and it didn't quite fit. I had a tough time understanding what's going on here. Later on, when Patton Oswalt's character is talking about Garaka, it's so fast. I need to watch this film again to kind of get all that lore. And then after that, we get to the Spenglers and Mr. Grubertson driving in the Ecto-1 to bust a ghost. And I'm like, yes, we're gonna get tons of ghost-busting action in this film. Later on, we kind of find out there's not a lot, and that's one of the flaws. I wish this movie would have had a lot more ghost-busting action. And you got Paul Rudd, Mr. Grubertson, saying, I got a ghost to bust. And he was great in this film. That was cool. Paul Rudd is Paul Rudd. And I actually thought he was better in Frozen Empire than he was in Afterlife. And there's a lot of cool shots of New York City, cool shots of the Ecto as we go around, and we have a drone trap to try to catch this ghost that's flying around New York City. Thought it was a really cool opening and really set the tone for what I thought was going to be an awesome film. The mini puffs are back, and I don't really like these characters, but we knew they were going to be around, and this is kind of what Ghostbusters is now. So I've learned to tolerate mini puffs and their cutesiness. You know, these are the Minion-esque characters that we're trying to bring in fans of Minions to the Ghostbusters franchise. You have the Library Ghost, you have Slimer, you have the mini puffs, and Garaka. I probably missed a couple ghosts, but that being said, there was a lot of ghosts. But I want more ghosts. Give us a montage. I want a full montage of ghost busting. I like Garaka a lot. I think it's one of the better villains that we've seen in a while. Probably no Gozer or Vigo, but it's probably right after that in terms of big bads. You have tons of characters in this movie. You have the Spenglers, Phoebe, Trevor, and Callie, as well as Mr. Grubertson. You have the old school OG Ghostbusters, Ray, Peter, Winston, Janine.
Ghostbusters, what do you want?
You have new characters, such as Kumail Nanjiani's character, the Fire Master, as well as Patton Oswalt's character. Podcast, you have Lucky. You have James Acaster's new character. You have quite a lot of characters to fit in this movie. A lot of people complained about too many characters all over the place. I enjoyed that, and that's what I want to see is more Ghostbuster teams. Why are we limited to New York? Why are we limited to one team of 4? Why not have Ghostbusters all over the world? And I was actually shocked at a lot of the reception for this movie. I think this is a fun film. I think it's better than Afterlife, yet so many people are saying that Afterlife is a better film. Afterlife was filled with nostalgia, had all the same kind of pattern of the original Ghostbusters movie. This one at least had new stuff. It had a new villain, Garaka, was super awesome, had the long horns. And of course I couldn't help myself. I was at the Regal Cinemas and I bought the Ghost Trap popcorn container. This was kind of pricey, you know, I think it was what, $35 or something? And I thought it came with popcorn. But apparently you have to buy the popcorn separately. So I had to buy a large tub of popcorn to go with this. So my experience at the movie theater consists of the movie ticket, the Ghost Trap, and a large tub of popcorn. So it was kind of costly, but it was worth it. It was worth it. Ghost Trap. If I were to change something about the film, I would cut out completely Phoebe's whole storyline with her ghost friend. As much as I loved the love story between a human and a ghost, I can relate very hard to this. This whole part of the movie kind of ruined the pacing, and it wasn't something that I really enjoyed, and I think you could cut this all out. Why not have, I don't know, someone like Podcast try to take the orb and unleash this entity instead of having this whole convoluted story where Phoebe turns herself into a ghost and then since she's a ghost, she can now be possessed, and then have her possessed body kind of unleash the orb. It didn't make a whole lot of sense. And then to have, you know, her love interest be like turn on her. I really like the idea that Phoebe gets kicked out of the Ghostbusters because she's too young, and then she's all sad and kind of wants to do Ghostbusting on her own. Why not link up with Ray Stantz, who's, you know, kind of getting too old for ghostbusting? And then, you know, Ray Stantz and Phoebe and Podcast can go on the Ecto-C, and they can go and bust ghosts the entire film by themselves, you know, kind of creating their own Ghostbusters team. I really liked all the new Ghostbusters engineers. It really opens up the world, and lots of paranormal research that's going on in the Ghostbusters facility. I myself, as a paranormal investigator, do a lot of paranormal research, and I liked the fact that they mentioned parabotany. And I actually have been looking into cryptobotany. I actually saw some cryptobotanical plants in Florida, and, you know, it kind of seems that there's some relation between cryptobotany and parabotany. I think the budget was about $100 million, and it made $45 million on opening weekend. It should at least make back what it made. But of course, it'll make lots of money on merchandise. And I was recently at Walmart and I bought all the toys. And of course, you know, you got the Spenglers. Now, this is Phoebe and Callie, and of course Trevor. Is this Trevor? Yeah, Trevor. And then you got Gary Gruberson, which I was thinking maybe Gary would propose to Callie, you know, let's get married. And then maybe Gary can take Spengler as his last name, be super progressive. And also Gruberson is a terrible last name. So why not be a Spengler and live in Egon's footsteps? Maybe that's something to do in the next movie. You know, take note, Gil Keenan. I also probably would have cut out the library scene. You know, do we really need Patton Oswalt to explain this whole thing? I probably need to rewatch this. You know, Patton kind of goes into this lore, and I kind of just zoned out and don't remember it, and it kind of had this, you know, stone thing, and it was turning and showing all this old ancient history. You know, why not have just Ray Stantz kind of pull out a book at Ray's Occult, and you can cut out this whole section? It felt like it was just some way to like go and have some member berries, to go to the library, to go see the library ghost inside there. You know, cut all that out. We don't need it. And then it had that possessor ghost in a trash bag going out to the lion. You know, cut all that out of the movie. There was no mention of Ivo Shando, no mention of Vigo, no mention of Oscar. You know, a lot of stuff. We had no Louis Tully. If there was one thing I'd like to see is add Louis Tully in there. Back up the Brinks truck. Let's get Louis Tully in one of these Ghostbuster movies. He is one of my favorites. The OG cast was great. I'd like to see 10% more of them. I thought Winston was great. I'd like to see more of Winston. I felt like he could have been written better. But, you know, he was fun, and he still got it.
Let's get to work.
Bill Murray, Peter Venkman, was fantastic in this short, limited role. Always a welcome to see Bill Murray here, and it was more expanded than his last outing in Afterlife.
Tall, dark, and horny at 12 o'clock.
We did not see Egon's ghost. I was expecting to see Egon kind of show up again as a ghost. My favorite part of the movie was Ray Stantz. Dan Aykroyd got to play a large role in this movie. He was the best. My favorite scene was when Winston and Ray were talking about how it's their golden years, and are you gonna, you know, keep doing this? And Ray, you know, saying this is what he wants to do. I felt in Afterlife, Ray Stantz was written poorly, and it really pissed me off, and it was one of my least favorite things about Afterlife, but they totally redeemed it, and Ray Stantz was Ray Stantz that I know.
You the weird guy who buys strange old things?
Correct on both counts.
And Dan Aykroyd, his father, Peter Aykroyd, actually wrote this book, A History of Ghosts. And this is, for all you paranormal fans, this is a real page-turner, really interesting, and actually a non-fiction paranormal book that you can check out with true story of seances, mediums, ghosts, and Ghostbusters. And of course, we got the new Slimer. I will say, you know, I like the way that the aesthetic, the look of Slimer in the original 1984 film more than this. This one, he's a little, I don't know, plastic, a little more corporal. I want to be able to see through Slimer. I want to see him more as a ghost. But this is a really cool toy. Probably one of my favorite toys. And I guess you can put your finger in his mouth. And one of the B storylines is Trevor kind of chasing around Slimer in the firehouse. You know, from Ghostbusters 2, Louis Tully's kind of chasing around Slimer. In this movie, they kind of bring back that plot line of Trevor chasing around Slimer. Another plot line that was cut from Ghostbusters 2 was the Ecto getting possessed. So they actually have the Ecto getting possessed here, and they got to fight that. I would have liked to see more of this, have more of the Ecto kind of going bonkers, and you have to fight your own vehicle. And I thought Kumail Nanjiani, the fire starter, was one of the highlights of the film. Thought he was really funny and, you know, a nice added character, and he was one of the keys to kind of getting rid of Garaka.
I think we're all going to die.
A lot of characters in this film, and I think that they did a pretty good job balancing them all. I liked Paul Rudd more in this film than last one. I thought Finn Wolfhard was fine. I think Finn and Carrie Coon, Finn Wolfhard, Carrie Coon could have had more to do. You know, they just seem to be there, as well as Podcast and Lucky. You know, why are Podcast and Lucky, why did they move from Oklahoma to New York City? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Dumb. They were fine in the film, so I'm cool with it. I actually like the idea of making a podcast with Ray Stamp. Lucky doesn't seem to need to be in this movie, and she was very sexual, which was kind of weird. I really wanted to see a Ghostbusters montage. You know, in Ghostbusters 1 and Ghostbusters 2, we have these montages where they're going around busting ghosts, and it's missing here. Also missing was a soundtrack. You know, this is the first Ghostbusters movie that doesn't have soundtrack in it. Now, I hated the soundtrack in Afterlife, but that's not to say they couldn't fix it for Ghostbusters Frozen Empire and have some really cool, kind of retro-sounding songs from like Ghostbusters 1, Ghostbusters 2. Peter Venkman had some great lines, even lines that were poorly written. He makes them fun.
Melnitz in uniform. Yes.
And I really liked when he drank back some booze in a Ghostbusters movie. It was fantastic getting ready to face Garaka. That's another cool thing about this movie. You know, you got the new gadgets, and this is a new blaster. This is called a Proton Blaster, Zap and Blast. And that was another, I like the James A. Caster character, Lars Pinfield. You know, he's researching, making all these new equipment, and I actually like, you know, he's like looking into listening into the Ecto Containment Unit. It's like, oh, you know, can you make it listen better? And he's like, oh, silence. I thought that was a really good joke. There were some good jokes in this film, unlike Afterlife wasn't really that funny. I thought this was probably the third funniest Ghostbusters film. This was the third most entertaining Ghostbusters film. This was the third best villain in a Ghostbusters movie. This is the third best Ghostbusters movie. And I actually, you know, it's not living up to Ghostbusters 1, which is a 10 out of 10, or Ghostbusters 2, but it's good. It's fun, and you should watch it. You should buy the merchandise, go out and buy the toys. Let's make another Ghostbusters movie, and I think they'll fix some of the mistakes in this movie, and it'll be a good one. Yeah, I'm just not a fan of the whole kids, the whole family thing. This isn't the movie that I would make, but that being said, Ghostbusters Afterlife happened, and this was a fun continuation of that. This movie could really use an extended cut. I feel like there was a lot that was cut out of this movie, and we need to see that inserted back into the film. I see a lot of complaining online about this film. I thought it was fantastic. I think it was definitely a fun watch. At the end of the day, there's a lot of things I didn't like. I thought it was poor writing. I thought, you know, some of the plot lines could have been cut. I thought some of the pacing was off. But I just had a lot of fun with this, and I actually look forward to more Ghostbusters movies. I want to see a sequel. Let's keep pumping out Ghostbusters films until the end of time. Hopefully they're as good as this or better. You know, I want to get back into the level of Ghostbusters 1, Ghostbusters 2 territory. But unfortunately, when you're focusing on a family or on kids, you're probably not going to have that happen. Casper, what did you think about the new Frozen Empire movie? Was it pretty good? Yeah. It's a pretty good Ghostbusters film, y'all. This is actually my third favorite Ghostbusters film. This is actually my third favorite Ghostbusters film. This is my third favorite Ghostbusters film after the original and Ghostbusters 2. I think it was a little better than Afterlife. Therefore, I give it a 6 out of 10. Thank you for watching the review. Did you like Ghostbusters Frozen Empire? Did you hate Ghostbusters Frozen Empire? Like, subscribe, and comment to the Truth Searchers on YouTube. And as always, be a searcher.